change the dismissal for next year.
So let me ask 2 questions.
Yes.
Does that mean that the teachers work 5 extra minutes?
No, they are required to stay an additional 30
Okay.
minutes. So right now, to 2:45.
Right.
So this is not
Okay.
additional time for them, they're already there.
And then so we dismiss the kids, and then what do they put in different rooms or in the cafeteria waiting for their buses?
The
What do
students wait in their rooms, and over the loudspeaker, each bus is called, and then those students come down, so it's a staggered
So we have a
dismissal.
Okay, this makes sense then.
And Mr. Fauché thinks that we're going to capture some instructional time, which
By
is really good,
adding 5, okay.
by adding
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Great. We don't need a vote on this, do we?
No, this is a point of information,
Okay.
but you should know.
Any questions? Seems to make sense. Okay, next, bills and payroll, I believe we're done. Minutes, we have 3 sets of minutes. Do we have 3 sets?
Yes.
February 28th, open session. I've read through them. The only thing I found was on the first page, number 2, A, public input. Maskers Club, I think, is S' rather than apostrophe S. That's a real Steve Jervy, isn't it, right there, finding that one, isn't it?
Well, say that again.
Maskers, S'.
Yes.
The Maskers Club.
Yes, I would
I
think
vote to
so.
keep the typo.
What does Karen say?
Mel's correct, but you could also just leave the apostrophe out, and it's still okay.
You could, right.
I feel like Masters did.
Right, you could leave the apostrophe out also, but it's not apostrophe S.
How
I'm
do you get a,
sorry.
how do you get a master's?
No. So can I have a motion to accept the minutes of February 28th, 2011, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bauer, second by Ms. Ericetti. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Then we have our March 14th meeting. Michael was not present, so we will abstain from voting. And that was held in the high school library before the town meeting. I didn't find it, and a little bit after, we also met after the town meeting to approve,
Executive.
right, executive session. So unless anybody has any questions or changes, I'll have a motion for the March 14th open session minutes. Second. Motion by Mr. Arcady, second by Mr. Bowers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, 4-0, 1 abstention. And then we have the executive session on March 14th, which actually followed the town meeting. So if I can motion to accept those minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Bowers, seconded by Mr. Venezia. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, 1 abstention.
Great.
Carl, FY11 budget update.
Yeah, as I was formulating this budget update, I was looking for something poignant to mention in terms of a problem, but really, this has been a very smooth year.
You were looking for
Well, I always feel obligated to have something, significant to report, but suffice to say that we don't. We're really spending on track. Our efforts now continue to be to try to find strategies to carry over money for next year. I know I've been a broken record about that, but I think I'd like to mention it because there's a lot of planning that has taken place over these last several years to try to help us out next year. So in discussions at our last administrative council, we began to touch upon possibly closing down this year's spending a little early and
put it toward next year.
and continue to be frugal, continue our efforts to do bulk purchasing, all the things we like to remind everyone that we do. So it's probable that we will do that, and towards the end of the school year, we'll be able to identify what dollar figure we can use to help us out next year. We're still carrying a number. We'll report to you at the budget workshop this week what we're doing, but we're still being a little conservative about that. But I'm pleased to say that we're still in the black, and everyone's being paid, and we're following our spending plan.
I have a quick question, Carl. Please educate myself and the public about this, but if the boiler for $250,000 gets approved, that's a big cap item, and we're still at a shortfall of $650,000 by the time the end of the year comes around. Can we apply that and transfer the monies from the big cap over to operating expenses and pay for that?
No.
It'd be nice, but yeah.
No.
Is that a law, or is it a,
Well, the appropriation would be specific on
Right.
the warrant article for the boiler, not for the appropriation.
Yeah.
So I don't see any way to do it.
The only way, what's happened in the past sometimes,
It's a
Michael,
restricted item.
is you've
It
gotten
isn't.
money for an item, and sometimes there's been money left over, and sometimes you can transfer that to other things, but you can't, once it's voted on as a large cap item, that's what it has to be spent on.
even though we may have to cut programs and
Yeah.
teachers and all
Yeah,
that?
separate.
You'd essentially be saying the town meeting approved the boiler, and then afterwards, we would decide, well, we're gonna take that money.
Because that money is borrowed over a long term to cover basically.
Or the large cap?
Yeah, it's borrowed over a long term, so it's bonded, so that's.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Well, and there are some, and I would also add that when they go out to the bond market, they're literally, this is Wall Street, you know, and they are specifying in their disclosure
What it's for.
specifically what it's for.
Right.
So it's for
So,
an appropriation, it's only good for 1 year, and that's it, you know.
Yeah.
All right, so it's just more than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it becomes a muni bond, by the way, it really
Yeah.
does. You can buy
Buy.
a North Reading municipal bond.
Yeah, sure.
And it'll include, it'll say, this is for the following purposes: roads, boiler, walkways, you know, you'll actually see it.
I had a quick
Go ahead,
question
Karen.
about substitutes. I just wanted a quick update that that's going the way you thought it was gonna go in terms
Well-
of maternity leaves and all of that.
It's going the way we thought it would go, from the perspective that as we learn about new maternity leaves, we're formulating the cost. But truth be told, when we passed the FY11 budget, we budgeted far less than we're going to spend. So we on a weekly basis, update the cost. It's a kind of a complicated formula, because you see, you have to determine, I probably telling you more than you want to know, but you have to determine how many sick days the person on maternity leave is going out on, because they're staying on the payroll for X amount of days.
Right.
And then the long-term sub is paid at a certain rate. So you're actually tracking on a daily basis all the costs.
I thought you were gonna tell us how you were gonna predict how many teachers were gonna go out maternity leave next year, and that was the complicated formula. I thought you were gonna give us that.
I don't think I'll go there. But,
You should-
I just wanted to know if we're on track there. I mean, it's something I'm worried about, but.
yeah, the number that you
I'm sure
see in the
are.
report is exactly what we projected to be.
Okay.
And as Kathy points out, the bottom line covers that shortfall. We have to make it up somewhere else.
We have no staffing, no bids and donations to report tonight.
That's correct.
Subcommittee reports. We had an athletic subcommittee meeting this past week, and we talked about a couple of things. The signs at the turf field are proceeding. They've actually sold 30-plus signs.
At
which will
$1,000
raise
apiece.
$30,000 for Parks and Recreation. And Kathy has been approving these signs. And we also have a new set of, not policies, but
Guidelines.
new set of guidelines that each sign must pass in order to be approved.
That's awesome.
We talked about Dave Johnson, the high school athletic director, is moving forward aggressively with the possibility of adding 2 new athletic teams at the high school. They would be co-op teams. One would be a co-ed gymnastics team, and I believe Danvers High School is a school we're speaking with there. And then girls hockey, we're talking to Linfield or Masco Linfield for a girls hockey team. Both of those would be, it'd be much less costly for us to do it that way initially, gauge interest in the programs, and if there's enough interest, we could eventually build our own programs.
We had some discussion on the fee for that, too. and
Right.
We concluded that it'd probably be the same user fee
Right.
that everybody else pays.
Right, we'd be working on how, how those fees would be paid, but hopefully they pay the same fee as the other athletes pay for the other sports at the high school. But those are both looking pretty positive for next year. We're
I
gonna-
have a meeting with David this Friday.
Great, which would be great to give kids more opportunities. We don't think we have enough girls right now to do our own girls' hockey team, but there are girls who want to play hockey. We used to have an agreement with Wilmington, that ran out, Wilmington did not renew it.
We did that for 4 or 5 years. I
Right,
think.
right. And gymnastics, Mr. Johnson already, there's an interest level, I remember, I think he told me 20, 25 students that might be interested in gymnastics.
Yes.
So there's a great deal of interest in that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mel, but I think one of the girls that skated on the Wilmington North Reading team, Jess Cioli.
Right, she was in the
She was
Final
just in
Four
the
for the.
Final
right,
Four for the Division III college
Right.
hockey tournament. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And then we also, we had discussion of making repairs to the middle school field, and Coach Carey was there, and Marty Tilton, the head of the department, and through the generosity of the Diamond Club, they're going to put up the money to replace the field. Scaled down version, but we're going to put new clay in the infield. We're going to dig out the field, and also we've talked to, Carl has talked to Wayne Hardiker, our Director of Buildings and Grounds, and Wayne is going to work with Marty Tilton to make sure that field is maintained so it can be used as a practice field.
For freshmen and JV,
For
probably.
freshman and JV teams. So we were looking maybe at a lot more money than that, and we've been able to put a plan that won't cost the town anything to get that fixed. And then the other thing, just quickly, Dave Johnson said that it looks like there are a little more than 300 students signed up for spring athletics, which is a phenomenal number. We have 700 plus students in the school, and yeah, we have 300 playing spring sports. So it shows the interest in athletics. Do we have anything else?
That's pretty much it.
And then we have upcoming subcommittee meetings. We have